Clickers again. Go ahead and take it up to see.
가족이면 몰라. 많이 똥꼬 같았어.
And we are off. Welcome. My name is Sophie. I hope you all enjoyed the first part of your tour. Now, this part, as I'm sure you can already tell, is going to be a little different. I hope you've noticed that we've got 3 horses out in front of us instead of the regular 2. And so that means that I like to say that this part of the tour is at least 50% better because we've got 50% more horse. So it has to be. Let's meet these guys out in front of us, shall we? On the left, we've got Bo. In the middle, we have Coke, like Coca-Cola. And on the right, we have Feather. Now, something about our 3-horse teams that's more unique than the 2-horse is that every trio gets a nickname. Every team in our barn has a special name. These guys are called the Amish. Now, there is a reason. I promise we're not just calling them that to make fun of them. They each have short tails, as you'll notice here. Any horse with a short tail on the island came from the Amish. They're the only ones who are allowed to dock the horse's tails, that's what it's called. So when they're foals, they band their tails so the cartilage part inside their tail can't grow any longer. So it's not all just horse hair in their tails, there's actually kind of like the cartilage in your nose. And so these guys, their tails will never get any longer. They all came from the Amish, and that's why we call them the Amish. Now, this part of the tour, we will spend almost 100% of it inside Mackinac Island State Park, which we have now officially entered. I like to say at the beginning to make sure you get acquainted with your surroundings. So take a look at those trees on your right, folks. And then look at those same exact ones on your left. They never change the whole time. We will see a couple of other things on the way, I promise, and you'll learn some new information about Mackinac Island and about these guys in front of us. Come on, boys, let's go. All the way up the hill. Here we go. So, Mackinac Island State Park now takes up parts of our island. It wasn't always this big, and it didn't always used to be a state park. In fact, it was our nation's second national park after Yellowstone. In 1875, Mackinac Island became a national park. That's because of one very important Michigan state senator. His name was Thomas Ferry. He grew up here on Mackinac Island, and he loved it so much that he wanted everybody to come and experience the beauty of his home as well. And so he was able to convince President Ulysses S. Grant to make Mackinac Island a national park. And it worked, because he said the one word this federal government loves. The word free. He said it won't cost you a dime to maintain the park. Instead, the soldiers who are stationed here at Fort Mackinac will simply act as park rangers on their days off. He also had the ingenious plan of renting out part of the national park land to wealthy homeowners who wanted to build summer cottages here on the island. After the Grand Hotel was built, this became a popular destination to have a second home. And because the rent was cheap, it was also doable for many families. And that rent generated income for the national park. Now that only worked as long as the fort was here. The fort was decommissioned in 1895, which meant there was no more free labor for the national park. And so the federal government passed it right on to the state of Michigan, and thankfully Michigan takes great care of it and made it the state's first state park. And it's been one ever since. When we get to the top of this hill here, you will be able to see St. Anne's Catholic Cemetery. the original location of the cemetery, and St. Anne's Catholic Church, which is now located downtown on Main Street past Island House, that's not the original location of the church either, although both of them have been here for a long time. It's actually the second oldest parish in the nation. It was originally on the mainland and then moved here. And in the late 1800s, when the island started to become a tourist destination, they decided to move the cemetery from the docks up here to the state park area. This is because they wanted to make more room for hotels, and also they didn't want the first thing tourists saw when they got off the boat to be a cemetery. It wasn't very welcoming. Play now, guys. No fighting. If I could ask you to be quieter in the front so everybody can pay attention. I'm sorry. Just a little bit. We're here for a while. St. Anne's Catholic Cemetery, when they moved it, they moved the caskets and the gravestones separately. So about the first 30 graves in the cemetery on your right were kind of a guess and check, except they never checked. So we don't know if those are the actual people where they're buried. Every grave since then that's been added we think is correct. It is still an active cemetery. Again, I'm not checking those either, so. You can be buried in St. Anne's if you've been a Mackinac Island resident for 5 years, or if you've paid taxes here on the island for 15 consecutive years. The oldest grave in St. Anne's Catholic Cemetery is that of Mary Biddle. If you were paying attention to the first part of your tour, you should recognize the last name Biddle. That's Agatha and Edward Biddle of the Biddle House downtown. Mary was their daughter, and one day in 1833, when Edward and Mary were crossing the ice bridge that forms from the island to the mainland in St. Ignace, the ice wasn't thick enough in one place, and Mary unfortunately fell through. On this one, so sorry about the off-roading. Nowadays, Mackinac Island residents can use snowmobiles on the island, November 15th to April 15th, and so they'll cross on the ice bridge to St. Ignace and mark the way, just like Edward did, with old Christmas trees, so that nobody reaches the same fate as his daughter. On the left here is the Protestant Cemetery. This is the original location of this one. That green sign there with gold lettering marks the oldest grave. That is of Harriet Mitchell. She died in 1831 here on the island at the age of 84. Nobody knows her secret, but we do know that she never married and she never had any kids. So you do the math. On the left here again is the U.S. Post Cemetery at Fort Mackinac. There are 109 graves in this cemetery. However, only 39 of them are known. Originally, a couple more were marked with wooden crosses engraved with the soldiers' names. However, due to the harsh elements here on the island, those have weathered away. The rock on your left, this is Skull Cave, folks! Precisely! Yes, wow! Now, so people set up shop and then tried to reach the caliber of the Grand Hotel. Of course, if your neighbor is the Grand Hotel, you probably want your house to look pretty nice. That started bringing in even more tourism. And then in 1895 is when the car ban went into effect. Originally, in the city council bylaw, they banned all horseless carriages from the road. They were convinced that the horse was the mode of transportation that was here to stay, that the car was just a passing fad. Eventually, the state park followed suit. The City Council of Mackinac Island, the town, actually has no jurisdiction in the 83% of the island that is now a state park. They're ran by a separate state park commission. And so in 1901, the state park followed suit and also banned horseless carriages. After that, business started to pick up. However, when the Great Depression hit here, it became a very controversial thing. Because nobody was coming to the island, many residents wanted to be able to use cars. They said their claim to fame was no longer bringing any business in, and so what was the point? However, in the end, as you all know, the car ban won out. They never went back to having cars on the island. There was one resident, however. He would come here for the summer. He had a home place up on the East Bluff. He would drive his car into his garage at the beginning of the summer, keep it there because he wasn't allowed on the roads, and then he would drive it back to the docks in October because he wanted to prove a point that there should be cars on the island, even though he never drove it all summer. There's a doom. They lead to a 3-mile hiking trail. It's a very nice trail. However, I need you back on my carriage in 8 minutes. You can do the trail hike another time. And it offers no better view of our truck. The best view will be up the metal stairs. Now, I'll give you an exact time here to get back on my carriage. It's almost 11:10:51. You've got until 10:59. You can leave stuff here. I've got to hold my horses. I'm not going anywhere.
이야, 이 옥수를 끝내주네. 어머.
It never does us justice.
I know, but like
It's so shallow when you're up there. Well, it is shallow for a while.
이 동굴이.
Ooh, so pretty. Oh, look at the kayakers down there.
Can we use it?
No, I don't have any points there.
Does Daddy have any points?
No, sir.
$2 quarters.
I mean, I just
We need $2 quarters.
Yeah, going kayaking down there would be awesome.
That would be fun. I'd be totally up for that.
Keep laughing.